Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's great to see so many people here from around the world. My name is Sarah Hartnett, and I'm very excited about our discussion today. I'll be your moderator, and I'm looking forward to an engaging session with our two esteemed speakers, whom I'll introduce in just a second. Now, we're just going to get started in a minute. Before we do, a bit of housekeeping. Because of the size of the webinar, all attendees are automatically muted. To enable closed captioning, please click the CC button at the bottom of your webinar window, which is pictured here. We would love to hear from you throughout the session, so please leave comments in the Q&A widget. We have the team working behind the scenes to help answer your questions. And don't worry about taking notes. We'll follow up with a recording of the event so you won't miss a thing. All right, so we're going to cover a lot of ground today in a short amount of time. First, we're going to kick things off with a quick look to the past and discuss the various approaches companies have taken to adopt AI, along with the biggest lessons learned. Then we'll spend a good amount of time on what's happening right now, focusing on the complexity that many CISOs are having to navigate and discuss the path to productivity and ROI with AI. And finally, we'll ask our speakers to look into their crystal ball and discuss what to expect or at least prepare for in the near and long-term future of AI. And now let's meet our speakers. I'm Sarah Hartnett, the Senior PMM focused on IT solutions, and I'm excited to introduce our speakers today. I'm joined by Rinki Sethi and Suha Khan. Rinki is the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Bill, a publicly traded Silicon Valley-based company in the fintech industry. Previously, she has served as a security executive. Excuse me. She has served as a security executive at and leader at companies including Rubrik, Twitter, Pacific Gas and Electric, Walmart.com, eBay, Intuit, Palo Alto Networks, and IBM. Suha is the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Grammarly. In this role, he leads security, privacy, compliance, responsible AI, and corporate engineering for the company globally. Previously, Suha was Director of Security at Amazon, overseeing security engineering globally for Amazon Payments, and he led global security research teams at Microsoft. So needless to say, we have tremendous experts here today. Thank you both for joining us. All right, let's start by diving into some of the biggest lessons learned when adopting AI across an enterprise. Based on pre-submitted questions from the audience, as well as insights from our customer base, we'll focus this section on three key topics: risk management, shadow AI, and employee AI readiness. Let's start with the hottest of the topics, risk management. Now, we all know there's been a flurry of AI adoption over the last 18 months, as every company tries to unlock new efficiency gains and ensure no ground is lost to competitors. The first wave of enterprise AI adoption has focused heavily on safe implementation, with a heavy focus on data privacy and security, and for good reason. Knowing that a large portion of companies are still in the safe implementation phase of their AI journey, what have been some of the most effective approaches and practices you've seen to safely adopt AI? Rinki, I would love to start with you here first.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I would say on the risk management side, for a lot of us, this AI journey reminds me kind of the cloud journey that we had gone through, where you're now like, it's a whole new world and a whole new way of thinking. And you've really got to start putting new frameworks together to manage risk around AI, because the benefits and the impact can be so huge. And so you want to make sure you're enabling it securely and safely. And so I'll give some very practical advice on how at least I've thought about this and how I feel that peers are thinking about this. But I think the very first step is thinking about AI governance frameworks and what that means to your company and what that means for your customers and for your employees. So thinking about putting together AI ethics committees and ensuring that you have principles around transparency and explainability around implementing AI models. I would say number two would be thinking about data privacy and data security by design. So if you're building LLMs internally or building AI tools, thinking about how you build privacy and security inherently right from the start. And if you're on the consumption side, making sure you have a proper vendor risk management program that includes legal, privacy, security, and others that are evaluating technologies to make sure that data is protected in the right way. I think it's really important, especially in this day and age, like there's so much innovation happening that these products that maybe didn't have AI capabilities or LLM capabilities are transforming. And so thinking about how you're monitoring not just your vendors, but also your internal models and auditing those on a regular basis. And then ensuring that data is encrypted in the right way. You apply the zero trust architecture that many of us talk about in the security world to your AI capabilities as well, ensuring regulatory and risk management compliance to either third parties that you partner with or any regulatory bodies that you have to answer to. And so I would say those are kind of the main areas, I think, to manage risk. And then it's not, last but not least, I would say training and education can go a long way. We're all learning as we go here, but ensuring your employees understand how to use AI safely and ensuring that customers understand how to use AI safely as well.
Great. Let's hear from you, Suha.
I believe Rinki really laid out the framework for how to think about risk management in this new space. I'll maybe just add that most of this stuff is not completely new to us. So I think there are a lot of parallels with how we navigated the cloud security age, and I think there are a lot of lessons to be drawn from that. There are maybe two net new things that are really worth keeping in mind when you think about managing the risks. So one is, which Rinki also touched upon, is the third party side of things. And what's really new here is the discussion around training. And as you know, these tools are quite hungry for data. Therefore, you really need to dive deep into the practices around data retention, data residency, localization, and training by your third-party providers. And when you think about the way these tools work, there the net new thing is this concept of a hallucination and how reliable are these solutions really. And I think our initial reaction to manage that risk is really prioritize those use cases. There's a human in the loop that is interacting with these tools rather than directly trusting the output of these tools in maybe an external facing communication or in actually taking action in your environment by your system. So those are the two net new things that I think we need to especially think carefully about as security professionals in this new age.
Awesome. Thank you, Suha. Now, building on this topic of risk management, let's also talk a little bit about shadow AI. So Forrester's found that 80% of employees are using unsanctioned AI in the workplace. So unsanctioned being outside of IT governance and oversight. So this part of organic bottoms-up adoption of AI, this is part of an organic bottoms-up adoption of AI, but it actually creates blind spots and additional security risks. And so I'd love to hear from the both of you. What are some of the best practices you've seen for managing shadow AI while also enabling employees to actually experiment and innovate by bringing their own AI to work? Suha, I'd love to hear from you on this first.
Sure. I think I'll say two things. One, the approach we took was first to realize that while there are a lot of tools, there are some categories where these tools are helping the business. And so we categorize the existing and emerging tools into things like prompt generation tools, code generation tools, chatbots, and that allowed us to better understand the type of tools that people are trying to bring into the workplace. And I think then what you do is really understand for your business which categories are the hot categories and provide enterprise data solutions, deploy them at scale, what I call the paved roads approach to stay ahead of the shadow AI problem. It's pretty much obvious that any company is going to have a lot of folks interested, for example, in using a code generation tool if you're an engineering company or a tech company. So what you do is the IT and the CISO leader is identify the solution that is the best fit for you and bring it to people in a safe way using the enterprise agreement and all the requirements that you need to comply with, rather than waiting for the title to take you over. So that's kind of the approach and strategy. I will say one thing though, generally, look, this is a really emergent space. So I think the way we approach shadow IT and shadow AI, I think there is a nuance there. I would say that not all shadow AI today for us is a negative thing. It's an emergent technology. More than likely, if you notice shadow AI, there's an unmet business need, and probably there are power users around, and they bring to work because they feel like this will set them up for success. So I think we should treat shadow AI a little bit differently than we treat shadow IT, and take a risk-based approach and use it as an opportunity to identify the needs of the business, because this is an emergent technology, and it's a little bit different than the traditional approach of shadow IT, where you squash it and you kind of block it and all that usual things that we love doing in security.
Rinki, how are you approaching this?
Yeah, I think Suha said it really well. I'll just add on that when the AI transformations started, I think a lot of companies went very conservative. We heard about companies just completely blocking products that were leveraging AI just to go and make sure that they had the right framework set up. I actually think that you can't stop this, that what's going on. And IT and security have to be enablers of AI, because employees are going to find ways to use it no matter what. And it's funny, the way I actually met Suha was because our employees love Grammarly, and it was all around how do we enable this in a safe and secure way. And so I think that's really important to have that mindset. I think we're at a point in time that we have to enable, of course, you're going to block apps that are malicious or that pose significant risk. But I think we have to, for productivity and for efficiency, we have to enable applications with AI and then really rely on monitoring. And I think you have to find ways to have non-punitive kind of reporting practices if employees do feel that they want to use something and they're not sure how they use it safely, or they accidentally maybe think that they misuse something. How do you report it so that you can be more proactive and get around these things until we get a better handle as an industry on how we, and especially not just a handle in industry, but as we see innovation happening, that will securely enable AI just natively. So I think that's the mindset that I have around shadow AI, because, and then of course, new products are coming out, or existing products or new products are coming out with these AI capabilities. So you have to have a monitoring capability ongoing for these new features that come out to make sure that you have security and privacy built in.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rinki. Enabling employees is really top of mind, and that's actually a good segue to our next question on employee AI readiness. So it's all about talking about the human side of AI adoption. Along with managing risk, leaders have been tasked to actually try to crack the code on how to equip employees to effectively use AI. And so this is a prerequisite for many of the benefits that AI actually promises. However, according to our State of Business Communication report released earlier this year, more than half of knowledge workers say they actually don't know how to use AI. So there's actually a major skills gap that leaders need to bridge. So question for you two, how do you see companies effectively building workforce AI literacy and readiness to actually make the most of their AI investments? Suha, let's start with you first.
Sure. I think I'll get going. This is actually really timely because this month at our company we launched the Autumn of AI Learning and Development Initiative, and this is basically the way we partner with learning and development team to come up with a curriculum and a set of education for employee workforce. That's what this is all about. It talks about our generative AI acceptable use policy. So I think this is one of the first things we did when some of these tools came to emergence, is provide clarity about what tools are approved and what tools are not, and where to use the safe versions of these tools. So this policy, and there's training around it in the current curriculum. The other really cool thing is we have a bunch of experts providing more technical training for our employees. For example, one of our machine learning researchers set up a prompt like a pro. It's kind of it's really a good opportunity to educate the workforce on not just which tools are available and what they can and cannot use, but also how to use them effectively. And we also have a bunch of vendor deep dives. There's just a built-in AI that's been enabled, as Rinky referred to earlier on, and we want to make sure that we make the most of it. So there's a lot of opportunity for education. I think relying on your local experts in technical domain and also partnering with your leadership and development team is the way to go.
I love it, Suha. Autumn of AI. That's great. Rinky, how about you?
I think like there's so many, I would say, aspects to employee training around AI, everything from, and we're still in the middle of this, right? I think AI is going to change the way we all work. And one is understanding how AI might augment your work and how you start learning new things, because a lot of the productivity aspects may free up time to do some more interesting things. So I think just education around what AI will enable and how we as employees continue to learn and grow, so that, it's not this conversation around AI is going to replace me, but, how does it enhance productivity such that I can do cooler things at work? I think that's a big aspect of the training. So like, don't be afraid of AI. I think, how do we embrace it? And I think then security training around everything, right? Even things like Zoom, and you think about the AI summary feature, it's different than recording the video. And it's when do you record versus when do you use AI summary versus not? And so you're training every aspect of like how you use technology, how you use it securely and safely. And you're kind of retraining folks on how to think about security, safety, and privacy in this new AI world. And then developers that are building LLM and AI and training, developers that are not deep in the AI space. I think everybody will need to now learn around AI. And then how do you build securely everything from ingest to what comes out in the output in the entire build, and who do you include? And so you're kind of retraining folks. And we've always talked about security and privacy by design, but then we've got to apply that now in this new world of AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Rinky. I completely agree. Well, we talked about lessons learned. Let's actually spend some time discussing the new challenges and priorities that CISOs are facing right now. And so one of the biggest ones is ROI. So while many companies have now safely implemented different AI solutions, the question now is, what impact have those deployments actually made? That's where things have been getting really tricky. AI ROI has been really hard to measure and quantify against business impact. And so, Rinky and Suha, I'm really interested in your perspectives on this. How are you both defining AI ROI for your organization, and how are you actually measuring this? Rinky, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I love this question because everybody wants AI. Like everyone's like, I want to apply AI to this problem that I have. And it's not always the right solution to just apply AI. And it's a new kind of buzzword of the day, but it is going to transform. And you do have to determine when it's right to be using AI to solve a problem versus what might there be other fundamental things we need to do. But I think defining ROI, think about operational efficiency. That's the one that comes into mind first. It's productivity gains and efficiency gains. It could be revenue generation, strategic differentiation. How is it supporting in more efficient decision making? And then I think a big one, and that's probably like Suha and I and our world that we live in, could it reduce compliance and risk? Could we have reduction in compliance, time to go and comply? And could we gain efficiency in compliance? And will it reduce risk in some way, which could be huge as well? And so I think that how do you go about measuring this? You'll have different KPIs and just different KPIs associated with each one of those that I just mentioned. And I think those will start defining how is AI bringing ROI back to the business.
Yeah, I can perhaps add on a couple of things which I think is also important. There's definitely a lot of tools and there's a lot of interest, and I think measuring ROI should also include the employee experience side of it, which typically, when you do a pilot and you want to get feedback from the employees, are their life getting better or worse? Because on the face of it, something might be showing that you have gained some efficiency, but maybe the friction to get to that level has gone up rather than gone down, and typically this happens due to quality issues. So as vendors trying to bring this technology to their users as quickly as possible, you want to keep an eye on the quality of the tool, in addition to all the other things such as efficiency gains, KPIs, and time saving, and so on and so forth. So I think it's super important to remain vigilant on that, especially as you scale solutions.
Great, thanks, Suha. Let's continue on ROI for a second longer here. So how are you using ROI as a signal to scale and reject certain AI solutions? I'm really curious from the both of you if there are any tactics, criteria, or processes that you can share that can help organizations identify the AI deployments that should be approved and scaled. And so Suha, I know that you've been thinking a lot about this at Grammarly, so would love to hear from you on this.
A couple of things. I think in terms of tactics, identifying power users and champions of certain tools is really an interesting one, because there's always early adopters, and those early adopters, if they start using one of these tools and they are getting a lot of benefit, there is probably the case that this is not unique to this individual, and there's a department or group of employees or a type of role in the company that will really benefit from that. So I think going back to my conversation about Shadow AI, being open-minded about interest and experimentation and allowing the power users cases to as a point for you to scale from is a pretty good tactic. I will also say that, if you want to be successful with this, you need to understand a little bit where the technology is at right now. The technology is in its relative infancy, and use cases where, for example, due to the issues we mentioned, such as hallucinations and bias and quality issues, use cases where there's a human in the loop using these tools and looking at the output of those tools and applying their logic and reason is probably where there's the most opportunity at this particular point in time, because there are still a lot of issues with using the system in a more autonomous way today. So I think you need to identify your power users and listen to them and use it to scale, and you need to really be aware of where the technology is at, so that you're not shooting for the moon and remaining practical about what it can deliver for you today.
Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's funny when IT teams, it's like, you have this business technology teams and they intake work from the business, and you have a limited number of resources in your IT biz tech team that will usually say that any type of software, whether it's Salesforce or any of these applications, there's new projects that the business wants, and you're already having to say which ones are going to have the big benefits to the business, because we're going to prioritize those, and as resources free up, we'll apply them to other kind of other areas where we get a big bang for the buck kind of initiatives. And so I think about AI the same way, that there's a bunch of initiatives that the business wants, and some have very high revenue impacts, some have productivity gains, so you see less expense, or you might get kind of leverage at scale in terms of headcount. So there's a lot of different areas, and so you have to create some kind of I would say criteria or prioritization criteria. But a lot of those prioritization criteria already exist in our companies. It's just now bringing AI into the fold. And bringing that into that same business technology conversation. And so I think it's just a new avenue in existing kind of frameworks that we have. And you may have some new kind of KPIs that you're measuring or adding that we may not have had before.
Thanks, Rinki. I'd love to talk about some other ways AI is impacting teams and organizations, specifically how they relate to cyber programs and also team and organizational structures. And so let's start with the impact on cyber programs. I'm curious, along with vetting and implementing AI across the org, how are you both leveraging AI tools and LLMs within your own cyber programs? Rinki, let's hear from you on how you're approaching this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an area that I'm extremely passionate about because like we've been leveraging AI in cybersecurity for such a long time. It's how our companies and the technology stay ahead of the hackers is because you can do behavioral learning, anomaly detection through AI. I think how our analysts and engineers interact with security tools is going through a massive transformation. There's so much innovation happening right now. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, the tools that we use are going to be so different, and how our engineers interact with those tools is going to be very, very different. And so I know we're staying so on top of kind of the technology innovation that's happening. But we're already using AI-driven anomaly detection. In most cases, the tools that we all use already have that. We're using a lot of AI-based response systems as well. I think some of the new areas that are emerging is LLMs for threat intelligence and how we interact with that, and how LLMs can really help us apply on top of tooling efficiencies so that we're actually getting a lot of the context, at the very beginning. Instead of waiting so late. And I think a lot of practices in cybersecurity teams are changing because we're having to now analyze tooling across the board for AI. And so I think that's a new lens that we're having to apply. And so I would say those are kind of the new ways and old ways that we're leveraging AI with our cybersecurity teams.
Awesome. Thanks, Rinki. Suhal, how are you thinking about leveraging AI within cyber?
I fully agree with all the dimensions Rinki mentioned, including the fact that this is going to be transformational in how security teams use the tools that we leverage day to day. One specific area that I recently started diving deeper and found promising solutions is AI for autonomous pen testing. So there's a couple of startups there that are really using AI to identify and exploit vulnerabilities, and they started with web applications, and they are already passing several of the online labs and capture the flag competitions that are out there, and the people behind them really know what they are doing. So super interested in applications of this large AI models to offensive security testing in particular.
Great, thanks, Duha. Let's turn to team and organizational design. So AI is poised to significantly impact how businesses operate and structure their workforce. And so how are you adapting your team and operations to align with these changes? Duha, back to you again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there are three areas, I would say. One is recognizing that ML security is a durable investment that we all have to make. Similar to how we have cloud security teams, I expect us to have, and we already do have, an investment in ML security in particular. These are the folks who are very familiar with both the technology, the tools that are used by ML developers, so the operational side and the development side, but also LLM specific vulnerabilities and how to do security assurance for a model, given that this new technology increases the overall attack surface of AI in any stack, really. So ML security is one. The other one that's really interesting is responsible AI. So here, this is coming up as a team all up focused on ensuring that safety is built into the models. And I use the term safety in a broader sense than just security. It's an alignment with human values. It's the exclusion of toxicity, and it's really the reduction of hallucinations. This whole area, and that's really obviously Grammarly builds a lot of models, and when you're building a model from the ground up, you need to do certain things. You need to make sure that during pre-training, toxic data is excluded from your data set, and as you're doing instruction tuning, we have built these safety demonstration data sets that we use that go into the model building process, and also red teaming. Once a model is built, trying to contort it and try to make it display failure modes. Again, this is all under the umbrella of responsible AI. What I can tell the people listening to us today is this is not just a problem. These challenges are not just for people building models. Even if you take a foundation model like Llama and you fine-tune it, your fine-tuned model could exhibit issues that were not present in the foundation model, and that's really key. And I'm assuming there's a much wider area of folks focused on fine-tuning models than building foundation models from scratch. So you don't need to think about this space, and you don't need to make investments here. The third thing is really us as CISOs. I think this technology has put us in closer collaboration with our legal teams and privacy and data protection teams. But also just learning these new areas and thinking about responsible AI as part of the overall trust and security organization. So those are the ways in which this technology is really impacting and in a durable way the way we do trust in companies.
Rinki, how are you thinking about this adaptation?
Yeah, I think Sua said it perfectly, so I won't repeat what he said, but I'll add one point is I think we're still in the middle of this, right? And I think the next few years, as we see, we're going to need new skills. And I think with the efficiencies that AI will drive, team structures will have to change, and the types of skills we may need will have to change, and we'll have to adapt and, be very agile to the changes that are happening. But I do think structures will look different. I think time has a lot to tell in terms of where AI and an LLM, I think there's a lot of innovation and development happening. There's still a lot to happen in terms of application and use of this innovation. I think as those mature and we actually see these things come to life, it'll be very interesting to see how these structures change, not just in cyber, but across the company, and how skills will have to change in the type of people that we need, and where we may have completely new teams and new skill sets that we may need. So I think next few years are really going to be telling.
Awesome. Thanks, Rinki. All right. Before we go to audience Q&A, I'd love for the both of you to look into your crystal ball and share some of your thoughts on what CISOs and IT leaders should have on their radars. And so there are two topics that I know our audience is especially interested in hearing about. One is autonomous AI and also the future of regulatory compliance. So as AI technologies advance, there's an increasing focus on the potential for agentic autonomous systems that can make decisions and act independently of human input. So while this promises more efficiencies, it also raises concerns about control, accountability, and security. And so for the both of you, how are you both foreseeing autonomous AI taking shape and bringing value to organizations? And what potential new risks should we all be thinking about? Rinki, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think where I see kind of the more real application of autonomous AI is really around threat detection and response. And I think that's going to be the first area where we're going to see some significant change. I do think at the beginning, we will have to have some human element to it to check, to make sure that as the maturity happens, that it's the accuracy and there's like no bias in the autonomous systems. It really excites me. It scares me as well. But I think that when you think about the future and how cyber warfare and things like that are going to happen, it's going to be autonomous. And so we as organizations to protect are going to have to adopt autonomous cyber. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting time that we're in. And I can only see that there are going to be not just regulatory challenges, but ethical challenges as well when you're thinking about autonomous AI, that how will we ensure that systems remain unbiased, and that we're compliant with global regulations. And then again, around like ensuring data privacy and surveillance and how we apply that to the autonomous AI. And so I think it's going to be a lot of the things we think about today, but a application to a different type of tech, and thinking about it at scale.
Suha, what about you?
I mean, just going back to some of the potential innovations I'm looking forward to, like offensive security. These are dual use technologies at the end of the day, and the attackers will also be leveraging these new capabilities. And I can totally see, based on Rinky's description of the future and my description of the future, there's very likely going to be bot warfare systems autonomously trying to adapt to each other and do attack and response, while as humans we don't maybe fully understand what changes are occurring or how these systems are making their decisions in a different way than it is today. So super interesting, and I don't think we are many years away from this world. So it's going to be quite interesting to see.
Awesome. Thanks, Suha. All right. Well, for the sake of time, let's actually get to some audience questions. But before we do, I want to offer an opportunity for those of you in the audience to get in touch with Grammarly to learn more about how we can help your organization deliver on many of the priorities discussed today. And so Grammarly has over 15 years of expertise in providing AI-powered communication assistance built on best-in-class infrastructure, with also the largest portfolio of enterprise-grade attestations for an AI communication assistant. Security and compliance are at the heart of everything Grammarly does, whether it's developing our AI communication assistants or working with our over 70,000 professionals and enterprise teams. And so you should see a poll on your screen. If you'd like to learn more about how Grammarly can help your organization adopt AI, please go ahead and select yes in the poll, and we'll follow up. All right, let's get into some audience questions. The first one's for you, Rinky. In your lessons learned, you mentioned that performing a risk management, you mentioned performing a risk management audit on AI. So what does this audit actually consist of?
Yeah, this would be what you would want to do is making sure there's two sides to this. One, it's the models that you're actually developing, and you have to kind of feed data through those models then to test it for bias, accuracy, security. Like, can you put things through that are that may bypass security controls that you would have in other tech? So you would have, in the same way when you do a threat model or you do audits of any other technology, you have a set of criteria. You'd partner in this particular case with your privacy and legal teams, and ensure that you have not just security covered, but other areas covered too that may make the model either inaccurate or biased or lack security controls. And so you want to have test data that you can put through that for audits. I would say that's one piece on the build side. On the consumption side, you'll want to look for, again, one, do you understand all the AI usage that's happening across the company? That could be an audit. There could be like, how are you able to put sensitive data, and is there leakage? So there's a variety of different areas, and a lot of these audits and frameworks for these audits exist in kind of different standards that have been published as well in terms of what you can do from regular auditing or monitoring.
Great, thank you, Rinky. All right, the next question is for Suha. So we've been learning more about human-in-the-loop approach to AI integration. Do you have an opinion on this approach or thoughts on how to incorporate proper oversight into AI deployment?
I think really this is what I try to refer to is responsible AI process, but there are many levels at which you can include some guardrails, and I think you include some guardrails. For example, when you first start looking at data before even training your model, you need to have confidence on the quality of the data you have, and also on ensuring that the data is privacy preserving and does not have toxic or harmful elements in it. And I think this is also where you can apply some level of truth grounding on the data set that you have. If it's just conversations on Slack, obviously there may be a lot of false information there. But if it's scientific articles or trustworthy sources of information, then you're going to have a higher level of fidelity. So I think that's the first level of assurance. Just like in security, we talk about shifting left. This is kind of the shifting left of the modern level of assurance. And then once you start going into training, you remove the data sources that don't have reliable information, toxic or private, or that have toxic or private data, and then you start now ensuring that as the model is built, you have some data sets that actually demonstrate the opposite. You have some toxicity data sets, some data sets that you can use to demonstrate that your model does not exhibit those characteristics. And this is also an investment you have to do. And we end up creating a number of different data sets in-house for this. And you end up building content classifiers. So you put one model in charge of assuring another model, and they were developed in a different way with different characteristics. So that's another tactic we use. And there's still quite a bit of red teaming and human scaling through humans that we also have in the process. And I think this is all these areas are fairly novel, and I expect a lot of research and publications and talks about these in the upcoming years. And it's really exciting to be part of it. But there doesn't appear to be a silver bullet to the problem of hallucinations as of today. So it's an active area of research, which is also why when I think about autonomy, moving away from fully autonomous decisions in critical systems and more towards a human in the loop type of scenarios at this point in time, is probably more prudent. And the writing is a very good use case for it, because as you're writing and there's a suggestion coming from the tool, you're reading it and you can apply your logic to it as well, versus plugging this stuff in financial trading systems or other places where there's potential real world impact from hallucinations. So
all right, well, thank you, Suha and Rinki. Thank you all for joining us today, and a really special thank you to Rinki and Suha, our speakers. For the next steps, please share your thoughts on today's session using the link that we are dropping into the chat. Shortly, you're going to receive a recording of today's webinar in your inbox. And lastly, we invite you to stay in touch with Grammarly across our social channels, and especially subscribe to our AI Responsibly newsletter on LinkedIn. Thank you all, and we'll see you all next time.